Uh, yeah. It was absolutely wild because I wasn't looking for anyone. In fact, I was to a point, I was coming out of a relationship and I was so burnt out on just relationships and, you know, uh, I came back from Nashville to LA. I'll try to make it really kind of tie it all together really quickly. But like I came back from Nashville to LA and I had been married for about 9 years. And, we were two different people. She's an amazing person, but we were just trying so hard to fit a square peg in a round hole. And, she sacrificed for me to do music in Nashville and she kind of worked for a while and I did that. And then I also worked for her so she could do acting here in LA. And it got to that point where we just went our separate ways. I mean, she kind of gave up on acting. I gave up on music, and I got a real job. I got into editing to make money for film and TV, and I got kind of stuck in that world of having a salary gig, working for ad agencies and post production companies, and it was great. Don't get me wrong. I like was so grateful because it like paid my bills, but I just was so miserable, like so miserable. I was just like working at this post production company, very well known one here in LA, but across the street was Universal Music. And I had been signed to them previously at Interscope Records. And I had to go and park at their parking garage every day at Universal and go to work for a post production company and sit in an edit bay and do editing that I just was like, this is creative, but it's not me, like it's not music, it's not audio. And so to make a long story short, 9 years of that, 8 years of that, and just being completely losing yourself from music and me, you know, being single for a long time and then dating and then having bad luck there as well. And being on a mountaintop one day and like running, because I used to run a lot and my back was hurting. I kind of have back stuff every once in a while. And I was just in a bad place and I was like desperate. I was like, what do you want me to do, God? If you don't want me to do music, what do you want me to do? And it was weird because in that moment, this guy came out of the bushes and he was like barefoot and he was like walking and he had like long black hair down to his waist. Sorry, I don't mean to take this on such a weird like journey, but
No, I
it's
love
how it
it.
happened. It's how it happened with Paloma. So at least I believe it's how it happened. It may be a coincidence, but he came up and he like came right up towards me, and I was a little nervous. I was like, I've been around in LA for a while, and I know how to watch my back, and he comes and stands right next to me, and I was like just weirded out by this guy, and he's like, you probably think it's strange that I'm not wearing any shoes, and I was like, it's like no, it's cool, man, like yeah, whatever, and he was like, no, no, no. In my culture, my ancestors believe that when you take your shoes off, you connect to the earth, and the earth heals your body, and you can clear everything in your life and in your mind from connecting to the earth. He's like, that's why so many people in today's world are so in a cloud and so confused, and they don't know what to do, is because they've all lost connection to the planet and to the earth, and it was weird. It was like he was talking to me and I was like taking it all in, and I was like, oh, this is really crazy. And then he said, another thing you can do, he's like, you should do it. You should take your shoes off today. And I was like, okay. And he was like, another thing you can do is pick up stones. He's like, everywhere I go up here, I move stones around. And at this point, I started to think he was a little crazy, but he was like, there'll be a stone in front of me and I'll grab it and I'll move it. And he's like, some of the stones I'll blow into the stones and I'll put my intentions into the stone. And then I take the energy from the stone. And he's like, what you don't realize is these stones have been sitting here for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And then you move those stones and it moves the energy. And he says, what happens is if you do this and you barefoot, you start to create this like quantum web of energy all around you, wherever you go. And he says it like helps you in your life. And then he like kept going. He talked about like mushrooms and peyote. And then he was just like, okay, it was good talking to you. And he like left. And I was just like standing there and I was like, what is happening? Like, and so he left and I just kind of like thought about everything and I took my shoes off and I hiked the rest of the hike barefoot. and it was like really painful. And I was like, oh God. And then after a second, it just like started to hit me. I was like, oh damn, like this is like this is like doing something to me. Like this is like something's happening. And so the next day after work, I got off and I was like, I have to go barefoot. And it became like an addiction. And every night after work, I couldn't wait to get off work to go barefoot hike. And it was the weirdest thing. And then all of a sudden, like all this clarity started to come back to me of like music and everything. And then my buddy from another band asked me to play guitar. He was like, "You should come and play in my band. I need a guitar player. I know you play. I know you're good." And I had like previously mixed a song for him, so he was like, "I know you're like a sound guy, and you got to be a great guitar player. Come play with me." So I went and played with him, and that's how I met Paloma. And I wasn't even gonna go play for him. I was like, at first, I was like, "No, I don't really want to get back into that whole world because it was such a letdown, you know, in Nashville. It was so hard." And so I went, and the first night of rehearsal, like that's when Paloma was there. So it may have been the second because I think maybe I played with him once before, and then I the second time I played for him, we rehearsed at a rehearsal space, and there was Paloma. And yeah, it was like instant connection. I like felt like I knew her, and like she kind of had the same thing with me, and it was so weird. Just her playing on the drums, I was just like, damn, like she's so good, and so we just started hanging out and became really close really fast. And the music just kind of like found its way because we started playing together for other people, for another gal that we were playing for, another big artist. And we toured a little bit with her. And then she heard some songs I had on file and she was just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you, you're not an editor." And I was like, "Oh, like I don't know. She's like, we need to finish these songs and like write new ones and like make a thing." And she was like, "Why don't we have our own band?" And then it just like it like hit us, you know? So it happened so fast because like I was not looking for anybody or anything. I was so far removed from that. In fact, I was gonna leave LA and like go back to Oregon because I was so burnt out on just everything. And it just happened. And yeah, I fell for her. She's just so amazing. And it's been just kind of like a mysterious thing that's linked to that guy. And what's crazy is I ended up telling that guy all this stuff because I went to Mexico and I had been doing the stone thing too. Everywhere I went on hikes, I would move stones. And I went on this trip in Mexico and I grabbed these stones and I was with my family. It was like a family trip and I blew in the stones and I said a prayer and I left them in this spot. And to make a long story short, it's crazy, but like Paloma and I were on tour with this guy, or she was on tour, and I went to be with her on a tour that she was on. And I flew to Mexico, and we went for a walk one night on that beach. And the stones were that I had left. I didn't know that we were by that spot. And we walked by the spot, and I recognized the resort. And I said, "Wait a second." And I walked over where the stones were, and the stones were there. And I told her the whole story, and she was just like, "What?" And then I told her about the guy, and like, yeah. And so Paloma started barefooting with me, and the rest is history. We barefoot like once or twice a week, and I could never stop now. But there's something to the internal world versus the external world, and I think my whole life I've spent trying to move everything and make everything. And I still struggle with it, but like I've learned a lot from Paloma. She's so spiritual and like, your external world is a reflection of your internal world. And until you deal with stuff like on the inside, the outside is not, it's going to stay the same or things aren't going to move. But what's weird is when I started dealing with a lot of that internal stuff and barefooting and becoming more spiritual, it was like everything on the outer like started to shift and things started to happen like really fast. So, it's even a reminder to myself right now, sitting here, that like you have to always make time for that, the internal world, whether that's meditation or barefoot hiking or connecting with spirit or God or whatever that is to you, the universe, because it's a huge part of like what's happening in your life. And I think, I don't know if a lot of people really even know. I didn't know. So.